One more minute while we wait for others to join, then we can start. Okay, I think we've allowed enough time for others to join us. So we shall be starting this webinar now. Yeah. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alice from Student Recruitment Office, GBS Dubai. Yeah, I will be coordinating this webinar today on sustainable construction for a greener future. So before I proceed to introduce our speaker, I would like to thank and welcome you all for joining us today for this exciting webinar on sustainable construction for a greener future. We are truly honored to have an expert in this field joining us today, and she will be sharing with us her invaluable insights on how sustainable practices are shaping the future in construction and architecture. It is my great pleasure to introduce to you our distinguished speaker, Dr. Rashma RSV. So, Dr. Rashma is a passionate educator and researcher with an impressive 12 years of experience in higher education, specializing in civil engineering. She earned a doctorate in civil engineering from the prestigious National Institute of Technology, Karnataka. Her dedication to research is reflected in her extensive portfolio of published work, including articles in SCI and Scopus Index journals, as well as book chapters. Her remarkable academic journey has been recognized with several prestigious awards, including Board Chairman's Gold Medal and the Institute Gold Medal, which highlight her exceptional achievement at both the undergraduate and graduate levels. Dr. Rachma's expertise in sustainable construction and environmental practices positions her as a leading voice in the field today. She will take us through the critical aspects of how sustainable construction can contribute to a greener and more sustainable future, an essential topic as we work towards a more environmental conscious world. Without further ado, please join me to welcoming Dr. Rashma RSV as she shares her knowledge and expertise on this important subject. Dr. Rashma, the floor is yours. Thank you.
All right. I hope my screen is visible. And thank you so much for the warm welcome. Can you just confirm this if the screen is visible?
Yes, it's visible and we can see you and hear you right.
All right. Thank you so much. Thanks again for the warm introduction. I'm excited to share my insights about deconstruction or demolition in this construction sector. Demolition is one of the I would say, the dangerous operations in the built environment. So we are going to discuss about demolition and deconstruction, and how we can incorporate sustainability in these. So we'll be covering some of the demolition methods and what are the information that we need before we go for demolition of any projects, how we are incorporating sustainability in this, how to handle the materials, and what are the statutory regulations that has to be considered when you are doing these kind of activities in this particular landscape, and what is actually deconstruction, what is the difference between deconstruction and demolition, which one is more preferred and more aligned towards a greener future. Okay, let me just take you through different pictures. So this is one of the picture that I'm going to show you. So this is a project which was abandoned for many years, let's say 20 years and so they decided to demolish this building so that they can go for other projects. So here there is no completion of building did not take place in this project. So the building was still under construction and was halted for many long years. So this is one scenario wherein you will consider demolition of the project, of the building. Okay. Now, this is another picture which shows a deteriorated or decayed building, or we can say which has already completed its design life or lifespan, and it is not fit for purpose anymore. So, in this case, um, for a smaller building, you can see a machine over here, and it is being demolished. And then let's go to the third one. There are some buildings which has become outdated and become unfit for purpose, but those are historic buildings. So some buildings could be repurposed. So for example, if you can see the picture on the left side, you can see some new windows are installed because that industrial building has been converted to high quality residential building. But in these cases, they have to know what is there in the existing structure so that because the utilities will be there, the services will be there. So those things need to be understood before they go for any kind of rehabilitation projects. Some old buildings, because of its historic importance, they will try to renovate to the maximum, but in some cases, it will be allowed to decay and eventually collapse. But that is not applicable over in this landscape because that will be considered as endangered or it is dangerous to all the people, and then it will be demolished. So this is the third case wherein the building will be demolished. Let's see some of the demolition methods. Mainly we can do by using hand demolition, some machine by using machine we can do demolition, or maybe by using overturning or wire drop pulling we can do demolition, and by using explosives. Some of you must have seen these kind of demolition methods, and as a child I was always fascinated. I've seen some buildings, some videos, some pictures where the demolition of certain buildings, bridges or any kind of structures happened. So let's go to this demolition methods in detail. But when it comes to demolition, the structures we are demolishing needs some kind of temporary support. So this picture represents a flying truss which has been provided for the wall so that it is stable and safe for the people who are working within the building. So these are temporary structure which we are using during the demolition. Now here in this picture, you can see the flying shows, the horizontal shows, which are used to support the structures, existing structures during demolition so that there will be safety requirement or for the safety of all the people and even the neighboring buildings and so on. Now, let's focus on hand demolition. So, this hand demolition will be done for Simple projects, so that means only a part of the project may be required to be demolished, to be removed. When it comes to works like rework, it can be considered as hand demolition. Even in hand demolition, safety is a very important aspect, just like a regular construction, and that needs to be taken care of. Now, in this picture, if you see, it is not a safe practice or an advisable practice to be standing when an activity like this is happening. Now, when it comes to a slightly higher size buildings, you will go for machine methods. So machine methods, there are of two types. One is you can use ball and crane method. We also say it as wrecking ball method. And the second one is by using demolition excavators. Now, in the picture to the right, the one that you're seeing is by using wrecking ball method, and in that a heavy ball will be dropped or it will be swung into the structure, which will cause damage to the structure, and it will result in a gradual collapse of the building. Now, again, in this case, flying debris is a problem, noise is a problem. So, depending on the site, for example, if it is in a rural area, if you don't have any adjacent buildings nearby, yes, you can go for ball and crane method, which is one of the oldest methods of demolishing. Now, when it comes to demolition excavators, where you can see in the picture, wherein also for these kind of structures, we can go for demolition excavators. Now, let me show you an example of wrecking ball demolition. Okay. All right, there is an advertisement which will be, yes. You can see here a wrecking ball and a crane arrangement which is used for demolishing this old building. You can see it's a rural area, not thickly populated and so on. Yeah, this is a demolition excavator which has been used to remove the further debris. All right. So you have seen the video of how this works. Usually it is a combination of different methods that has been used. And if you see the noise, the vibration, the flying debris, and the practices that has been followed is not up to the mark. So definitely in these kind of methods are only applicable in rural areas, and there should be a fencing arrangement which is missing in this site. And you could see a lot of people who were fascinated and looking at the demolition process instead of taking care of their safety, right? So because there is always a chance of collapse at any moment because you're trying to demolish. So there are different regulations in place for demolition, especially in UAE. Now, this is the picture which you are seeing, the demolition of the tie beams, the foundation beams, and they have used this demolition excavator. You can see all the debris over here. So even the foundation sometimes that needs to be removed along with the services that is being used for building. Let's go to the next one. Okay, in this slide, you can see that there is a demolition excavator on site, and there you can also see a fence. I hope you can see that in brown color, which is almost 2 meters, which is as per the regulations of this landscape, as per the safety regulations, because this is happening in a mm, all confined area. If you see, right, you can see all the buildings around. So this demolition excavator is being used when it comes to these kind of confined areas and also for small buildings. But this wrecking ball method, you can use it for rural areas wherein you don't have much buildings nearby, and where noise and vibration will not be much a problem to the other people. All right. Explosives. I'm sure you must have seen a lot of videos seeing the demolition of multi-story buildings. So definitely when the project is huge, which needs to be demolished, which is not yet completed or was on hold for many, many years, then yes, they make use of explosives to demolish a building. Now, sometimes within a minute, within 10 seconds, and so on. There'll be again flying debris, but they make sure that with the design, there will be minimum damage to the surrounding buildings. There will be vibrations. Surrounding buildings need to be protected as per the law. And roads, if there are any roads near to these kind of buildings, and people will be evacuated, and also there will be road closure throughout the day or maybe till some certain times. After the explosion, again, they have to clean up the dust from the surrounding areas before they get a demolition completion certificate. And they have to also make sure that there has been no damage after using these kind of demolition methods. All right, I'm going to show you another video which will give you information about explosives if you have not seen any kind of these videos before. This is a controlled explosion which was done in 10 seconds. One 44 floors, combining all the 4 towers together. All right, so by using any types of these kind of demolition methods, you need to have construction information in place just like any other building. So for demolition, for getting the approval, you need to have as-built drawings. Along with that, you need to have building manual in place, which gives you information about the specifications, the materials that has been used, and all the maintenance that has been happened throughout the life cycle of the building if the building was used. And in this, building information modeling by using softwares like Revit or any other similar softwares will help you in the process of demolition, right? Now, you can see in this picture, which has been taken from Build in Dubai, which is the website which gives you information about Dubai municipality regulations. Here you can see starting from building design, when it comes to owner services, and when it reaches the building after completion, which has been used for either renting or selling. So after that, building maintenance, and modification if required. So they will try to see if the building can be reused, repurposed, or any other thing. Only after that, if it is not fit for purpose, and they will go for demolition, which is also a sustainability criteria. Now, the information that needs to be done before any demolition processes, we say it as demolition survey. You need to find out the existing services, which could be live or maybe it is already taken out. So, this existing services, the building services details need to be understood. So, in this case, if it is an old building, sometimes we don't have data of BIM or any other thing. So you have to actually check and find out these kind of existing services. Then if there are any water courses, be it natural or man-made, you need to understand that. You have to understand the presence of any building materials which could be hazardous, which has been used during the construction or during the maintenance. You will have an idea about the distribution of loads, how the loads are being distributed, which is a critical factor in demolition design. And the building structure, what is the condition of building? So if it is highly unstable, then they have to consider it as a risk, and they have to go with some kind of precautionary measures. And you have to identify all the risks, all the hazards that will happen, because this is one of the dangerous operations in built sector. And distribution and position of reinforcement. What is the allowable loading for each load, whether a demolition equipment can be placed on that, and so on. Stability of the structure, and also the survey of neighboring buildings so that they can anticipate what kind of damages they can expect, and how to control these kind of damages, how to mitigate it, and how the loads, if there are any adjacent structures which are connected by any kind of bridges, pathway or anything, how the load is transferred and the access to the structure. Everything needs to be surveyed before these kind of operations. Now, prior to the demolition, they have to do a site survey, and they have to inform the relevant authorities. They have to actually apply for demolition permit here in Dubai, and they have to actually inform the municipality about the demolition technique, which technique are they going to use, and they have to follow the statements. They have to also make sure the health and safety plan is already submitted along with this demolition permit, and they have to identify the safe working areas and the areas which are excluded, the logistics arrangement, the material handling method, how they are going to do the transportation and things like that. And health and safety is must, the recycling, reuse of materials and the disposal methods, or if anything is there, there'll be some minimum waste to the landfill after sorting the materials which can be reused. Those things need to be included or discussed prior to the demolition. After demolition, again, they will have to conduct a survey to determine the extent of damage to neighboring properties, and also there will be clauses which mentions what could be done in case of any damage that happens. But again, every time the demolition procedures are always carefully undertaken, and it is the contractor's responsibility to clean up all the dust and debris from the surrounding areas um, after this demolition in order to get the demolition completion certificate. All right. In order to establish the noise and the vibration that you hear during the construction projects, I'm going to show you another project, and as you can see, you can hear the noise, and you can just anticipate the vibration when it comes to these kind of structures, right? So again, sometimes they will have to use initially this demolition excavators in order to minimize the load for demolition in this case. Okay, okay. Let's talk about stages of demolition if the building was in use. Okay, and they had to demolish because of some reasons. Maybe they would like to redevelop the area, or maybe the building has completed its design life and maybe it is not fit for purpose anymore, or any because of any reasons which leads to demolition. If the building was in use, what they can do is initially they can do a process which is known as stripping out, wherein all the valuable materials and the components and the equipments that which could be reused could be removed very carefully as a safe extraction of items, and their value can be retained. Okay, so these components which has been safely removed will have some commercial value in place. So following this soft strip, you can go to the main demolition stage, which can start from the top and which can extend to the floors below and then to the foundations. Always remember the demolition process after soft stripping starts from the top and then it will follow towards the foundation level, and from exterior of the building towards the interior of the building, in order to make sure that there is any sudden collapse of the building which can cause problems to the people who are near to that. Now, when it comes to stages of demolition and how it can be connected to sustainability, if the building which is in use needs to be demolished, first is the soft strip, and some pieces will have value, sometimes higher value, which can go for architectural salvage or other sales. Some items can be directly used, and sometimes it needs to go for recycling, that those items need to be separated and then it will go for the recycling industry. After the separation of materials, there will be some materials which cannot go to recycling industry, but it has to go in the landfill. So what we can do is the minimum wastage towards landfill. Now, coming to sustainability. Now, design of deconstruction. If you see for new buildings, since we are using BIM for the number of stories above 40 and all by the mandate, design of deconstruction, the disposal or let's say demolition of the building need to be incorporated now itself. Now it starts with the construction, the use of the building, then dismantling. So we always prefer to do a deconstruction and then component reuse as it is, or it can go for material recycling, or so that we can use it for as a some other material or for some other projects. For example, just assume reinforced concrete which can be recycled and can be useful for landscape projects, right? And again, this process will continue and which will contribute to a greener future. All right. The examples of materials that can be recovered, which includes aggregates, concrete, glass, gypsum, masonry, metals, some mineral waste, paper-based products, soil, topsoil, some excavation soil, timber, stone, some granite sets, and everything. Some components we can use as it is, like some door components, maybe window components, and so on. So that's what. If you're doing deconstruction, so there is a careful dismantling or disassembly of buildings. So we can use it for new construction projects as it is. But some materials, yes, it needs reuse and recycling. And this reuse and recycled materials will definitely help us to reduce the amount of materials which will go to the landfill. And as an example, the equipment for recycling, sometimes the concrete, which could be recycled and could be used for making roads, concrete blocks and bricks, and also it can be used for landscape projects. Maybe in the same site sometimes they can also use it for any other projects. So in this picture, you can see concrete crushing and plant, and sometimes they will use it for different purposes as I mentioned before. Now, in addition to these kind of materials, we will also have other materials, sometimes asbestos, sometimes lead, and many other materials which can cause problems to the people who will be using. So, personal protective equipment is a must for demolition projects, just like other projects in this particular landscape. And this contaminated or dangerous materials, if they are present, they'll be present in the different finishes or any kind of covering for insulation or any other things that needs to be checked and removed before the demolition, because you're doing all these processes in a confined space. Maybe it is not in use for a long time, right? So in those cases it needs to be, and all the people need to be aware of these kind of situations and material handling. And material transport is something that needs to be taken care of, and finally to the recycling plant, and also from there to the final disposal to the landfill. So all these things are regulated. Now let's think about the statutory requirements. Yes, as I mentioned before, there is a building permit, not building permit when it comes to demolition, it is demolition permit needs to be provided to Dubai municipality through different platforms. You can do that. And there you have to mention about the adjacent buildings. There is a site plan and existing building as built drawings, and you have to also provide health and safety regulations when it comes to demolition, which includes which technique are you taking, if you are using mixed methods, or how are you going to mitigate the risk, how are you going to uh, uh, provide safe environment for all the people working there, and also all the access for safe demolition. Is the public need to be aware of any kind of restrictions in the site, and so on. Now, okay, this image shows you a building demolition permit application, which can be done by using Dubai municipality or built in Dubai system, wherein you will be required to apply online. Without Dubai permit for demolition, you will not be able to do any kind of work. And if you see, along with your setting out plan, which needs to include the area to be demolished, and there should be an engineering survey related to seismic or vibration test when it comes to explosions, controlled explosions, and also no objection certificate from relevant authorities. If you are using mechanical method, from DEWA and the telecom service provider. And for controlled explosions, because usually controlled explosions are used for mega projects, multi projects, you have to get approval from different relevant authorities. And also you have to provide a layout of fence, which is mandatory. And also you need to give information about the method statement, which methods and techniques that you're going to, how you're going to manage the whole procedure of demolition, and specific health and safety an emergency plant, and also all the risks associated with this and how you're going to mitigate it. The impact of demolition on the surrounding or neighboring buildings to be submitted, along with the photograph of the site. So depending on these details, the municipality will give approval for further procedures. But this is a mandatory requirement over here in this landscape. All right. So just to summarize, deconstruction versus demolition. Deconstruction is something like we are carefully taking out all the components, maybe one by one, so that we can reuse it, maybe directly, or maybe we can recondition it and we can reuse the material for same or different projects. So sometimes demolition, if the building is on hold, the project is not moving ahead and it was on hold, all the uh, construction that happened so far has been deteriorated, decayed, and there is no other way, we don't have anything to reuse it, and then maybe you can go for demolition. And in that case, you don't want to preserve the integrity of any materials or components that has been used. So now I'm going to show you a very quick video on to know better about deconstruction versus demolition. So most people, like if it is a small project again, if it was in use, you will get to use deconstruction for sustainability.
Demolishing a house most often looks like this across the US. But in some areas on the West Coast, houses are now torn down like this, without wrecking balls, but with workers who disassemble the building piece by hand. The method is called deconstruction, and it allows homeowners to reuse or donate most building materials of the house and get substantial tax benefits in return.
Deconstruction involves more labor, but you end up with materials that have a value. And when the deconstruction prices came down to a point where it made sense, that's when we began to do it as our regular routine.
This is the second home deconstruction for Palo Alto developer James Witt. After more than 3 decades of building homes in the area, he switched to the new method last year. Mr. Witt paid $15,000 for the disassembly of the bungalow. An outside firm appraised the materials that will be donated. And come tax time, Mr. Witt expects to get enough money back through deductions to offset the entire cost. A regular demolition would have been less, about $12,000, but he wouldn't have gotten any tax benefits. Mr. Witt says it's not only the financial incentive that convinced him.
I think it's part of the community understanding that we're not just there to make a quick buck and move on. We're proud of what we do, and we try to do it we try to have the smallest footprint we can and still build new houses.
Deconstruction is a growing trend in California, triggered by the movement to more eco-friendly building and stricter environmental laws that regulate what ends up in the landfills.
This is a big part of why we deconstruct.
Roderick Cooper is owner of a deconstruction company in Palo Alto. He says about 30% of all houses that are torn down in the Bay Area are now done through deconstruction, up 10% from 5 years ago. Mr. Cooper was hired by James Witt to deconstruct his house. He says 85% of all building materials will be reusable, from the lumber and the roof tiles to the doors, windows, lamps, and even the water heater.
This is a prime example of why we should deconstruct homes more than demolish them, because material like the water heater and the sinks, floor tiles, ventilation vents, cabinets can all be put in, a new home.
In less than 1 week, the deconstruction will be complete. Then all reusable materials will be sold to nonprofits and directly to the public. Kay Liu had her house deconstructed about 6 months ago. The former PR executive and her husband decided to tear down the 1,600 square foot house that was here before and use the lot to build a 3,200 square foot 4-bedroom home.
We bought the house from the original owners, and they had actually put a fair amount of money into remodeling it, and it just seemed like a waste to take a bulldozer to it and a wrecking ball and throw it all away.
Kay Liu expects the tax credit to cover the entire cost of the deconstruction. She was able to recycle about 73 tons of debris and building materials from the former house. Not all of it was donated, though. Ms. Liu kept some of the redwood siding for her new home.
I think this is the best part of the deconstruction, the fact that we can sort of take part of the old house and reuse it in the new house. And you just can't get wood like this anymore. It's just beautiful color, it's a tight grain, it's going to be one of the highlights of our house.
Ms. Liu wants to use the redwood to cover part of the ceilings. She plans to move into her new home in May of next year. For the Wall Street Journal, this is Monica Vusuk.
All right, with that, I hope you understood the deconstruction and demolition and how it differs, and different demolition methods, such as we discussed about wrecking ball, and then we discussed about demolition excavators, explosives, and what are the construction information for demolition, and how sustainability can be incorporated in this demolition process, and the statutory requirements that needs to be strictly followed for the safety and for the greener future. Right, material handling is another one, and with that, these are some of the references I have taken, and that's all from my side. And I'm happy to address any questions or any queries that you might have.
Okay, Dr. Rashma, thank you so much. Thank you for the insight and the thought-provoking presentation. So, guys, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to submit them in the chat box. Yeah, don't hesitate to submit them in the chat box, please. Yeah, and we are also streaming live on Facebook and YouTube. So I will be reading out some questions that we have coming from those platforms. So the very first question here is what types of buildings or materials are best suited for deconstruction?
For deconstruction, I would say if the building was in use and if you feel that there are a lot of materials which we can recycle, and then we can go for deconstruction wherein we can dismantle the materials one by one. But one of the disadvantage I would say is it's a time consuming process. So depending on the efficiency and again the client requirement, you can select the method.
Mhm. All right, thank you. And the next question, which method, deconstruction or demolition, is more time consuming and why?
Yes, always deconstruction is a time consuming process because you have to carefully remove all the materials which can be reused, isn't it? It takes time. So it
Yeah.
will be a process which will take time and it is time consuming. So you are retaining the materials, you can reuse it. Again, you are contributing to sustainability, and some governments they will give you tax reductions for reusing the materials for your new homes and things like that. Yes, if it is if the scale of the project is manageable, yes, you have to go for deconstruction. You can do the soft stripping, and it will be always good to go for deconstruction.
All right. Okay, another question. In what ways does deconstruction align with circular economy principles?
Yes, deconstruction, there is careful dismantling of materials. Some materials can be directly used without any recycling or modification. You can directly use it, thereby you are saving the cost. And again, if it needs to go for recycling, and then it can go through different processes, it can be taken to a recycling plant. They will do all the reconditioning, and then it can be again useful to different construction sites. And in deconstruction, minimum wastage will be going towards the landfill, which is great for sustainability. Because for the regular construction, we say we will use lean construction. Just like that, even for demolition process, I would say deconstruction, which will have minimum waste in place, which goes to the landfill. Thereby, we can make our environment greener, our built environment greener.
All right. Thank you for that. Actually, lots of questions are coming in, and because of time, I won't be reading all of these questions. But just one last question, Dr. Rachma.
Mhm.
How does demolition affect air quality and landfill waste?
Yes, demolition, if, for example, if the building was on hold for many long years and
Mhm.
it needs to be done, because if the building is not yet completed, it was not used, that means that there is no much valuable items other than the structural framework when it comes to this landscape. So in that case, when it comes to efficiency, I think using explosives is the nice method. right method when it comes to that, because there is no other material to be retained, and it could be for redevelopment of the project, and they can go ahead with the further projects and so on. So in that case, yes, demolition will work. But for small scale projects, I think yes, deconstruction is the best method.
Okay. And we have one question here from the chat box. They're asking about greenery building. I don't know what they actually wanted to
Greenery,
ask. Greenery building.
green
So,
building.
Rush, yeah, green building. I think they said greenery building.
Okay, it's a
Thapa, if you could
sustainable
just
building.
expatiate, yeah, on this. Yeah.
I think they are asking about green building, sustainable building. We construct buildings in such a way that it doesn't need any electricity or any other uh, requirements for the normal building services, so it can sustain itself. Or so we are trying to make all the buildings at least positive energy buildings, so that it can use its own energy generation for its operational needs,
Yeah.
and then it can contribute back to the grid.
All right. Another question. Sorry, Dr. Rashma, but I
No
just
problem.
want most of the questions to be answered. So, why is waste reduction an important factor in sustainable construction practices?
Okay, waste reduction. When it comes to regular buildings, also, if you go with the traditional buildings, the in situ construction, sometimes if you are not carefully calculating the materials or anything, it will result in a lot of wastage, which will result eventually in the landfill, which is actually causing trouble to the environment. So we are trying to make sure that all the calculations are up to um, as per the standards, as per the requirements, and then we are trying to make it lean construction. So whatever is required for the actual construction is only being calculated, and it is being used in the sites in order to minimize. So from when it comes to normal construction, we say it is lean construction. And when it comes to demolition, again, when we reuse the materials by using deconstruction method, the amount of materials that will reach the landfill will be very much less, and then thereby helping the environment. I hope I
All
answered
right.
that question.
All right. So back to the students who asked about the greenery building. The question
Mhm.
is, what is the importance of greenery building?
Okay, what is the significance of green buildings? Our
Hmm.
This world has already exploited, I think, most of the resources that we have, because at one point of time everybody thought that we have unlimited resources in place. But then maybe in 1980s everybody started understanding whatever resources, the energy resources that we are using is actually reducing. So we have to preserve everything for the future generation. So that's how the sustainability concept came into picture. So built environment actually contributes to 40 percentage of greenhouse emissions, which will result in other kind of problems and global warming and things like that. So in order to reduce the amount of carbon dioxide emissions to the environment, people came up with sustainability in built environment, and that's what we are following, so that all buildings should be habitable, right? So we need to have energy which is being used for different building services. So that is what we are trying to reduce. So how we can do it is by using a lot of active techniques and passive techniques are there. We prefer actually passive techniques, so that which is included in the design of the building, so that there is minimum energy requirement for a building. And for a sustainable building, it's sustainable. That means whatever energy that we need for the daily operation, which needs to be generated by the provisions of natural resources. Let's say solar panels. Using solar panels, we can generate energy and we can make use of it, isn't it? So likewise, we can make use of these natural energy sources, and we can support our building itself. That's why it is known as sustainable. If our operational energy requirement and the energy that we produce are matching, if it is equal, we say it is net energy, net zero buildings, because it is balancing. But we always say that in order to actually track sustainability in place, we have to produce extra energy so that we can give back to the grid. I hope that is clear. And that's why we say it as green building, sustainable building, all are the same.
All right. Okay. All right. Due to time constraint, guys, please email me your questions and I will channel them to Dr. Rachma. And Dr. Rachma, once again, a big thank you to you for sharing with us your insights and your expertise and for answering all our questions. And I hope most of us or all of us actually learned and we can utilize these ideas and the information that we got from this webinar in our communities or in our daily work. All right. So, Dr. Rashma, thank you so much. We really appreciate you. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for joining us and have a wonderful day ahead. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye. And guys, actually, we are located in Dubai, GBS Dubai, and please, for those who are living in Dubai, do well to pass by our campus. And if you have more questions, you'll be opportune to talk directly with Dr. Rachma. She'll be happy to answer all your questions, and it will be a great opportunity for you to also see our campus and see the facility and get to familiarize yourself with our campus. And please, I will share with you in the chat box my contact details, my WhatsApp, and my email so that you can channel your concerns to me. And I look forward to hearing from you guys. Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's just
Thanks all. Thank you everyone.
thank you, Dr. Rashma.